Welcome to this first Bionic webinar, Get VoIP Before Your Phone Gets Disconnected. I'm Les Roberts, and today I'm joined by Tom Grange, Head of Connectivity at Bionic, and Alison Savage, owner of New Moon Holistic Therapies, to find out how VoIP can benefit her business and yours. Well, first up, why have we called Get VoIP Before Your Phone Gets Disconnected? That's not an idle threat that will send around some tech-enabled heavies if you don't switch to VoIP with us. We're not going to do the disconnecting, open reaches. If you weren't already aware, the UK's analogue phone system is due to be switched off completely by 2025. It means you're going to need to make the switch to VoIP or something similar in the next few years. 2025 seems a long way off. It's only about 43 months or 127 weeks or just over 31,000 hours. For context, it takes 10,000 hours of practice to learn a new skill, apparently, and that's just enough time to perfect each of the G, C, and D chords on a guitar to be able to competently busk your way through Sweet Home Alabama. And if 10,000 hours seems like an age, that's more or less the time you've just spent shut away across the various lockdowns. So basically, 2025 will be here before you know it, and your landline will be no more unless you switch to a digital solution like VoIP. Now, I'm going to pass over to Tom to give you an overview of what VoIP is and how it works.
Cheers, Les. So VoIP, what does it stand for, first of all? It stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Otherwise, might hear it referred to as hosted voice, cloud voice, or even as simple as a digital phone line. All it means is that your phone calls and voice data will be transmitted via your broadband connection rather than through a traditional copper phone line. Best way to look at it is it's not that dissimilar to what we're doing at the moment, using Zoom or just making a phone call using WhatsApp or something like that. So Les is exactly right. VoIP will become the new norm for phone systems in the coming years. That's not just for businesses, it's for consumers as well. In the near future, all phone calls will be made via an internet connection rather than sort of these clunky traditional phone lines that we've been talking about. Whilst the timing seems a bit scary, there's absolutely nothing to worry about in terms of switching to VoIP. What you'll find is when you migrate is that it's really quick and simple. Comes with a range of premium features as standard that you can benefit from straight away, and that you wouldn't from your old setup. And I think the reality is once you switch, you'll kind of never look back. So that's what it is in a nutshell. Loads of premium features we can kind of get into, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Great stuff. Thanks, Tom. Alison, tell us a little bit about your business and why you might be considering VoIP.
Yeah, well, apart from the obvious. Yeah, I'm Alison. I run New Moon Holistic Therapies. I was working from home until recently, but I am now I've just moved. So I do holistic therapies and I'm looking at getting a van, converting it and doing things on the move, going to the people instead of them coming to me. So yeah, VoIP will be a massive part because obviously I'm going to need to be able to get the phone calls when I'm not there, but not so that they're intruding while I'm treating people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to, find a solution.
That makes a lot of sense. I think where the kind of best and certainly most relevant thing for VoIP generally, not just for you, Alison, but for everyone in sort of this remote working environment that we all find ourselves in now, is the kind of flexibility of the setup. So with a VoIP system rather than the phone lines, and I think Les mentioned before this that you having to go back, check the voicemails and then make all of those callbacks.
Yeah.
It's things that you can use that VoIP system wherever you are, whether that is a traditional handset that's kind of plugged into your office at home, or you can get a mobile app and get everything coming to your mobile, so you never miss a call again, whether you're on the go or out and about, or just via a laptop, like we're speaking on kind of today. You can set it up in any way that you want, and it's that customizable element that is a bit the main differentiator between the traditional setups that you kind of mentioned before. So for someone like you, Alison, out and about, if you've got the van there and ready, you can set all of the features of that VoIP mobile app up so that it's either on and ringing and you can take calls, or you can set up some features to be able to get really, really great quality sort of voicemails that you can work through. So yeah, it feels as though it could be beneficial to someone like you.
Yeah, definitely. A lot easier.
Do you have any other questions on sort of the technology or what you might need or anything? Or
I've sort of worked with VoIP when it was first introduced. Oh God, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a nightmare. So I'm taking it. It's come a long way since then, because I mean we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. The technology has actually existed for a long time. I think there was a big sort of hubbub around when VoIP first came onto the scene that, you know, this is the future, and they were right, but they were 2 decades ahead of where they. I think the main problem with it at the time is that if you look at the broadband network infrastructure across the UK, it just wasn't good enough. The speeds weren't fast enough to be able to kind of cater for something like VoIP. Nowadays, with the fibre rollout, with Openreach consistently investing in the infrastructure, with the likes of sort of Virgin Media and lots of other companies investing in speeding up their own network and also expanding the network, suddenly everyone's got access to faster speeds now, and you don't actually need really, really fast speeds to benefit from voice.
So would it still sort of require routers and things like that? You know how normally you've got your broadband. Would you have to have a separate router and everything?
Nothing is set. It all runs off your existing setup. So all you need for VoIP to work is a broadband connection. A broadband connection could be a business broadband connection. It could be running off your kind of home broadband connection. But it all runs from that. You don't need to get a separate system set up for your VoIP. But especially for this kind of more simple sort of 1, 2, 3 user setups.
Because as at the moment, how it works is I've got the broadband for home and the separate BT line for the business phone. So are you saying I could potentially do away with that then?
I think if you're running a business, if something goes down, then it's going to impact your kind of top line and bottom line revenue. So I think having a separate connection for your business is very, very sensible.
Yeah.
You need to get anything else set up for VoIP? Absolutely not. You've got everything set up nicely. You mentioned you're with Daisy. All you would need to do is set up a one user VoIP system, and that would allow you all of those benefits of VoIP kind of straight away. There would be no need to wait around for a new broadband connection or anything like that. I mean, just in terms of some of the other features you would get as standard in VoIP, which are a world away from some of the traditional sort of phone systems. It's things like call queuing, hold music. If you wanted any of those bits, you can add them in straight away. You want a virtual receptionist to say, dial 1 for customer service, dial 2 for sales, whatever it may be. Yeah, that might be a bit over the top, but it's the sort of thing that
it's not just that, it's the one thing that I hate. If I want to speak to somebody, I want to speak to somebody. I don't want to be given options, press this, that and the other. No. This is
very true. Might be for somebody who wants to sound far grander and bigger than they that could be what it's for. But it's the sort of things you only imagine really big businesses to have, but actually you've got that access to that if you should want to use it, straight away. If there were 5 or 6 of you, for example, it might help you direct calls to the right person. Happens to be the expert in one particular field, so useful.
So I suppose the big question, Tom, is what happens if the network goes down?
Well, you are right that it is reliant on having a strong network connection, but the good thing is if you're set up and you're using, let's say you've got your desktop phone there, which is an IP handset, which is traditional, and that's plugged into the broadband, that might not work, but you can also run it off 4G, 5G mobile app set up. You've got that reassurance that if you've got a connection via your mobile and you've got the mobile app set up for VoIP, actually almost a fail-safe for if your broadband ever went down. So that's one of the biggest concerns, I think, especially in the past. Broadband was maybe less reliable than it is now. Actually, there's that kind of fail-safe element. It doesn't matter how you're connected to the internet, as long as you've got some sort of connection, it will work.
Yeah. Okay. And I know it doesn't really affect me unless I went into Derbyshire, maybe. But what about places like Cornwall and sort of rural Derbyshire where there are no broadband infrastructure. I mean, Cornwall's terrible. What are they going to do?
Well, I think in some places, and you're absolutely right, when it comes to network coverage, 99% of the country has access to, you know, good enough speeds, but there is the 1% of the country that only has access to a traditional ADSL network. It is the network that runs off the copper cables, the Victorian cables that have, you know, existed for over a century now. And they are relatively slow speeds in those places. What actually with VoIP, it's only transmitting voice data. So voice data is far smaller data than what we're doing at the moment, which is having a video call or, you know, sending across files, transferring files, streaming data on Netflix or anything like that. Voice data is far kind of smaller, and therefore, even if you've only got a connection of between 1 and 2 meg, it would actually work fine if you've got maybe 1 or 2 users for those kind of smaller systems. So it's pretty well set up to work in most places, I would say. Obviously, it has to be taken on a case-by-case basis, but I think you'd be in the absolute minority if it wasn't going to be for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing as well that you mentioned. It's sort of dependent on how many people are using the line. So sort of, I guess, similar to broadband, if you've got like 3 kids on an Xbox each, you're on your phone, tablet and stuff like that, it affects the speed. So the more people you've got connected, sort of, do you need a bigger bandwidth for that?
Yeah, I think it would be. Well, that's where you would speak to a Bionic telecoms expert. They would be able to get a view on actually what are your requirements, and if you're getting into the realms of, well, there are 5 different people that are going to be using this system, that's where actually they need to match up your connectivity in order to make sure it's kind of catered for that. So at very minimum, you know, a fibre connection level of end users, and then for the, you know, higher end options, which might not be relevant to you at the moment, Alison, but maybe in a few years' time when we're at sort of 10 plus users and you'll expand.
When I have my wellbeing centre, yeah.
Exactly. That's where the connectivity experts would recommend something like a leased line, which is where you don't share bandwidth with anyone else, and, you know, it's a connection that goes directly to your premise, and no one else can slow it down. You know, the kids can't slow it down when they get back from school and start playing the Xbox. So that's where there's a sort of customizable element interlinked with your connectivity.
So just one more then from me. Just say Alison a wellbeing centre, it's all set up, and then she opens another wellbeing centre somewhere else. What's the sort of capacity does she use the same number for both centres, or how does that work with VoIP?
Yeah, look, ultimately you can. You know, the app, you can get things set up to direct calls to wherever you want them to be. I think what you might find with 2 different places that you want two different setups and 2 different numbers, it would be totally up to you on how you set it up. And yeah, again, one of the other elements that's great about VoIP is you can either migrate your existing number to the system, or you can pick and choose a number in order to tailor that towards what your business is. You know, if you wanted a local presence in wherever you're based at the moment, Alison, then great, you would pick a local number. You wanted to expand the business and go to another area, you might want to pick a different sort of local number for that. And then similarly, if you wanted to give yourself national presence, then you could pick an 03 number or something to that effect, just to really create the right kind of facade and sort of first impression when it comes to customers speaking to your business. So yeah, lots of other features that are really beneficial for people trying to grow.
I suppose the other question is cost. I mean, are we going to see an increase because of the amount of money that's had to go in to put it in place, or should it bring the costs down?
So yeah, look, that's for a number of reasons. Number one, you don't pay line rental. With VoIP, you just pay per license fees for each end user. VoIP setups often have unlimited calls as standard, which if you're making and receiving a lot of calls is often more cost effective than paying per minute. Mm-hmm. International calls often much cheaper because all you need is that internet connection in order to make them. And actually, some of the news and market is that Openreach are making wholesale price price rises and flowing them through to all of the ISPs in market at the moment. And what you can see is that they're increasing the prices on some of the traditional platforms that are going to be retired in the next few years, but they're not putting those price rises on the new systems because they are more cost effective at a wholesale level. So yes, price wise, you'll generally be pretty happy when it comes to switching to VoIP.
Cool.
Just got a couple of FAQs. Actually covered most things off. Do you need to change your number when you switch to VoIP? I don't think we've covered that one.
So you can generally migrate your existing number onto your VoIP system. It will just be a specific request at point of sale, and that can be managed as part of the switch.
Brilliant. So just when you put out there, Tom, I was trying to do a bit of a filler. Spoke to Martin Coles-Evans from Hargreaves Buxton. He switched to VoIP 6 years ago. Just for a bit of context on Martin, he's the owner of a decades-old family-run tea room and homeware store. And he said he made the switch to VoIP because he was fed up of paying extortionate prices for line rental on the many phones he had several locations within his business. A VoIP system meant he only paid for one, which carried the broadband into the premises. During the first lockdown, this came in handy when everyone had to work from home. He could take his VoIP phone home with him and plug it into the home router, so he never missed any business calls. Call divert functions helped when staff were off ill, so a call was always answered. And the reception greeting function allows a personally recorded greeting before it connects. This was especially useful to tell customers of reduced opening times or store closure during lockdowns. You only pay for the license for the phones you need and have control as the business grows or reduces. So I suppose from that angle, I know, Alison, you said you didn't really like the idea of, press one for this or having a sort of greeting. I think in terms of like the way Martin's saying, if you do have to operate reduced hours one day, you can have a message that says, gives people all the info they need. So they don't necessarily need to speak to you at that point, which is another good feature, I suppose. Tom, just to finish then, if Alison wants to switch to VoIP, here's the sales bit. If Alison wants to switch to VoIP, or anyone wants to switch to VoIP, why should they do it with Bionic?
So we're the best place to go to switch to VoIP, primarily because of the kind of tailored package recommendations. So once you get on the phone to an expert, it will be a case of listen to your needs, build a package that would meet all of your requirements. You might find it's you're looking for the cheapest tariff and something that's really easy and simple, so they can kind of go for that. You need international calls, they could build specific options around that. You might like a specific handset, so we've got access to a whole range of handsets that we can talk through. So that sort of tailored package recommendation is the main and best reason to speak to one of our experts. And I think the other point that's really, really important is the fact that we compare multiple suppliers. So rather than speak to one individual supplier, we will compare across a range of them. And that's really great when it comes to securing the best product, the best level of service for the business. Final point would be account management. So once you go through the switch, it'll be a case of you'll have a point of contact throughout that to help you through, from that sale through to actually going live and being set up. So lots of reasons why Bionic is the best place to go for switching VoIP.
And it saves you money.
And it saves you money, yes, of course. That comes as default, Alison. We always save money.
Exactly.
Done my job for me. Worst salesman ever.
Forgot the main point. That's great. Thanks for that, Alison. Have you got any more questions or?
No, I don't think so.
All good. Brilliant. Thanks very much. Thanks as well, Tom. We will put a link to our VoIP page and a number to get in touch with our tech-enabled experts in the section below this video, which I think will be going on YouTube. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do via the website, bionic.co.uk, on Twitter or Facebook at bionic_business. Thanks for your time. We'll catch you again soon.